Hey, faithful, it's Greg Papa, the radio voice of your 49ers. I have missed you, and I can't wait to see you in person. I have not seen this guy since, I think, Groundhog's Day, and I think we're living in Groundhog's Day. Faithful, your 2019 NFL Executive of the Year, John Lynch of the San Francisco 49ers. We're all alone here. Let's make it feel like it's a packed house, John. Hey!
Thank you for the nice introduction, Greg. I appreciate it, man. It's good to hear your voice.
Good to hear you. You look good. So obviously, the state of the world, we're doing the state of the franchise. The state of the world is just different. Let me just start with the state of the Lynches. How are you? How are your kids? How are your family dealing with this?
The Lynches are doing well. You know, I think I always am an optimist in every situation. And I think the blessing, the silver lining for us, we have got 2 college kids. We've got 4 kids total, 2 college kids. And I thought the days of them being home for long periods of time had come and gone. And they're both at school locally. One's at Stanford, one's at Santa Clara. But to have them home, they may have another answer. But for us, my wife and I, and their younger siblings are pinching ourselves because it's just been tremendous family time. Obviously, you hurt for people in the world who, due to the virus and other things going on, are hurting. But there has been tremendous family time, which has been a real blessing. And then, you know, we've all figured out how to work and how to get our business done from home. And that's been surprising how effective that's been able to be. And my family's been tremendous, allowing me to do that, but then also spend great time with them.
So how have you done that? How have you conducted the offseason remotely as far as all the moves? And we'll get into everything you did this offseason. And then the functionality of the football team with these Zoom meetings in place of in-person organized team activities, John.
Well, first of all, Greg, I go back to, it was draft preparation. I think we were a month out when the shelter in place started. And you know, we basically were told we could no longer go into the facility. And there was never panic, but there was, oh my, this is a big deal. And the best coaches are great teachers. And this has allowed them to truly teach and go over all the mundane at time things that the great players never see as mundane. They take as an opportunity to learn. And so I think it's been a really good learning experience. Kyle's been tremendous on these meetings, leading them. His coaches have been, and I think the players have really enjoyed them and had a lot of value out of them.
So tell me about draft day, and specifically the first day on Thursday, John, where you trade back at one spot, you trade up at one spot, and it's from 31 to 25 in the back end. And it seemed like you got the 2 guys you really wanted to get. Going
in, I would say with the 13th pick, we had probably 3 guys that we were going to stand pat. If they were there, we were drafting them. When we arrived at 13, those 3 were still there. And so, at that point, we start saying, wow, let's try to find a trade partner, but we don't want to go back too far because Kinlaw was number 1 on that list. Tampa, wanted to come up. We were able to move back 1 spot, and we had a good idea. They weren't taking Javon Kinlaw. And so, we were able to accrue some more draft capital and get the player that we wanted. With 31, I can tell you that was a big surprise for us. If anything, I thought we were getting out, moving back because we needed some more picks. But Ayuk was one of those players that we talked about it, and he had gained so much favor in our process that, there was a scenario where we would take him at 13. And when, I think it was 21, when he got by 21, we just put everybody on their Zoom like this, make the calls, let's see if we can find a trade partner. Fortunately, it was Minnesota that we were able to, do a deal with, and we moved up and we're able to get Brandon Ayuk, and a player who we think fits us extremely well. And we just felt like that was too good of an opportunity. So to come out of the first round with 2 guys that we might have taken at 13, I felt was a banner day for us. And then you couple in, you throw in there the trade we were able to do, not on the first day, but later on. The Redskins kept us sweating, but with Trent Williams, it just made it a tremendous draft along with our other draft picks.
Yeah, talk about that. So obviously a very productive and busy day 1. Day 2, you didn't have any picks, but you were getting ready for day 3. And let's just start with the retirement of Joe Staley and what he has meant to this franchise, and just your conversations leading up to his decision to walk away from what's probably the best football team you ever would have played on. Last year's team got so close, but it's a tough call to walk away from a team that has the ability to win the Super Bowl. So how did that conversation go?
I think everybody recognized that, last year Joe struggled not only at the end, just with his health in general. He had a lower leg injury early in the season. That was incredibly frustrating because he felt so good coming into the season. Late in the year, he started to have some stinger issues, and it kind of, I guess, hit the boiling point around Super Bowl. But, Joe never told us because, like he later said, what was I going to do? Not play in the Super Bowl? No, I was playing in the Super Bowl. So after that, it kind of, he went and saw a variety of specialists, saw our own doctors, and got a variety of opinions. And, what speaks to Joe's character, he was so concerned with us, having a big hole there because of his inability to have an answer. And we had to keep encouraging him, no, take your time. We don't need an answer now. And finally, we had a conversation when he said, hey, when do you need to know? And I said, well, by the draft, I think we do need to know, because otherwise we have to make some other plans. And so, the week of the draft, Kyle, myself, and Joe got on the phone, and Joe broke the news to us that he felt it was in his best interest to retire. We had been in communication, fully supported that decision. And then it was time to get to work and try to find another, whether it was drafting someone, and, this Trent Williams situation was out there. We had made a call about it in the last season when Joe and McGlinchey were hurt, thinking, wow, this could be an option. When those guys come back, maybe we play them at guard, but it was too much compensation at that point. It just wasn't going to work. We just kept in constant contact. We didn't have anything to do on day 2. So I just wore Ron Rivera out. And fortunately, day 3, he woke up. He texted me, he said, let's talk. And we were able to do that deal. And really excited about it. Trent's a phenomenal player. He's replacing a phenomenal player in Joe, but incredibly motivated. He did not play football, last year. So there's going to be some rust, that he's going to have to knock off. But what we know is that he's feeling great, and we got a really good player replacing a guy who deserves Hall of Fame consideration in my mind, in Joe Staley.
COVID-19 obviously was the biggest story in the world for 3-4 months, until Memorial Day night and the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And it is now, that's the biggest story in our country, and rightfully so, John. And obviously it's a huge story in the National Football League. I know you've reached out to your players via Zoom, and Kyle as well. I know you were on a conference Zoom with hundreds of personnel people around the league. So just from all the information that you've gathered and talking to your players, what do you want to tell the faithful about Black Lives Matter and where the 49ers are at right now, John?
Well, first of all, Greg, you talk about that night, and just like everybody else, me and my family, watched in disgust and horror and sadness and sorrow, watching someone just get the life sucked out of them, and other people sitting there and watching. And it was terrible. It was so graphic. I've got chills right now talking about it. And I think emblematic of something, your sign back there, enough is enough. This has been going on for a long time, and people have been crying out. And so, my parents, I'm always thankful for the way my parents and the values they instilled. And, a couple things come to mind. Number one, I think in times like this, your actions speak a lot louder than your words. And so we tried to do that. We tried to, and no one had the answers, but what do? You reach out to your team and you let them know that you love them, that that they're hurting, and you encourage conversation. And I can tell you, I played in this league for a long time. I played a position where I was usually the one white guy. And, something that I shared is I was always welcomed. I had to earn that, but I was always welcomed. And I always felt welcome in a spot where I wasn't normally, the white guy wasn't usually in that room. And how appreciative, because that never really dawned upon me. It just kind of was the way it was. And there's so much good about our game, that it strips you down to your core, and it makes you realize that you have so much more in common with people than the differences, and you learn to celebrate the differences. And I think that's what we need to do as a country, as a culture, is listen and talk and have uncomfortable conversations. We've done that. You know, I will say about football, I was so proud of our head coach, Kyle, when he talked about passionately, because for everything right about our game, there's a lot that still is wrong. You know, the fact that in my role, there's 2 people that are Black that have this role in a league that's 70% comprised of Black players. You know, that's not right. And the same thing with head coaches. There's 4. That's not right. We recognize that. It's time that we do something about that. You know, we've always been proud of the measures we take at the 49ers to be inclusive. And but we're going to do more. I'm going to do more. I'm committed to that. I talked about playing in the league, but I think this is awoken. You know, I think the Black community has been crying out for a long time, but I think it's awoken everybody else to, you know, some of this systemic racism. You hear that. Well, what's it mean? Well, you listen to the stories of people on my staff and the pain that they feel. It's hurtful. And, you know, yesterday, you know, I think I'm looking at some notes because this was so powerful. There was this Dr. David Rice, that was speaking on this call you alluded to, with a lot of front office people throughout the league. And one thing he said that's important as we get introspective, you know, I've been praying a lot. Church opened this week, which is a great thing. I've been back at daily mass, and my prayer is for unity and for all these things. But he talked about one thing that's important, and I think this is applicable to everyone. How is it that you might be complicit in racism so that you can dismantle it, so that we can dismantle it? And I think that's so important. Everyone looking in the mirror first and foremost and saying, look, I don't believe, you know, that I have a racist bone in my body, but how might I be complicit, and how can I make it better? And I think if everybody just does that, you know, Kyle talked about it's not all going to change in a day, but we can chip away. And the one thing I can tell you, Greg, is I'm hopeful. I'm faithful. You know, I think I have a lot of faith that some good change is going to come out of this. And you know, we're not there yet because we want to do this right. I think our ownership, I'm so proud of them. They stepped up as they always did. But I think the thing that they know is that if all they do is give $1 million, but by the way, for the second time, they did this previously for social justice issues, and the action's not there to follow it up, it won't be effective. And so we're trying to mobilize our players, our staff, both on the business side, on the football side, as to what's important to you. How can we help? And our ownership's been tremendous in making it a very holistic process. And you know, our players have some ideas of some of the things they're going to do based around. I don't want to give too much, but you know, I think sharing some of the conversations they have with the public, and I think there's some exciting things coming down the pipeline. I know we're looking, you know, within our organization, where can we be better? And I think if people do that around the country, I'm sorry I'm going long, but you know, this has been an impactful couple of weeks, and you know, it's a mix of the sorrow that you talk about because you see people hurting, but it's also, you know, makes me very encouraged and excited of what can come from this. And those are my thoughts. And you know, I'm committed myself to trying to make this situation better with the platform that I have, and excited for that. And and also hurting for the people that have felt this pain for a long, long time.
Well said, John. Well said. So that's the state of the world we live in right now, and I think it's challenging, in a word. So the state of the franchise. Let's leave. This is the state of the franchise, right? So give me the state of the franchise from your first year. You lose your first 9 games. You make a trade to get the quarterback. You think that's out. Then the quarterback gets hurt the next year. And then last year happens, and you're 7 minutes and 13 seconds away from winning the Super Bowl. So now that you're into year 4, what is the state of the 2020 San Francisco 49ers, John?
Well, I think it's a state of of a team that I think is very well equipped to compete for championships. Now it's incumbent upon us to find a way to be better than we were last year, which was pretty darn good. You know, we talk about it a lot, Kyle and I. It's a philosophy, you know, we kind of bonded on when we first started having conversations, and something John Gruden used to talk about. You never stay the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And I'm very encouraged with where our franchise is. Our goal was to give ourselves a chance to be a better football team this year. I think we've done that. I think we have a chance to be a better football team, and that's tough. When you talk about some of the losses that we've had, I'm very encouraged, and now we just got to go do it. That's the great thing about this game. You can talk about it all you want, but you got to walk the walk, and we're looking forward to having the opportunity to do that.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you. I haven't seen you in so long. I can't wait. I'm going to give you one of these.
There we go.
We can't do that. We got to do that.
There we go.
So, thank you so much for your time, my
Give
friend.
me one more. I'm hearing your voice, and I'm just craving that touchdown.
Touchdown! Say, Brian, let's go.
I love it.
Stay healthy, brother.
I love it.
Stay healthy.